on community engagement strategy. As you know, we've had a report come to council previously to advise you that we are reviewing our community engagement strategy, and Todd's here to give us a presentation. So over to you, Todd. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark. Good evening, councillors. Everyone can see that on the screen, okay? Yep. So as you would be aware, we currently have a community engagement strategy in place. And I mean, even with the discussion through John's presentation, you know, community engagement sort of touches every part of what we do. And I guess it's you know, a really important and strong aspect of how we connect and communicate the services we deliver and the things we're thinking to change or make decisions on and so forth with our community. So as Mark had mentioned, we put a report through to the November council meeting looking to review the strategy with a bit forward, and Gemma, who's online tonight, has done a significant amount of work in reviewing the document and working again with Cobalt around some engagement practices to look at how we review the document that we currently have, and I guess bring it up to date in line with the IPR guidelines and a few other key factors around other consultation that we've sort of undertaken over the past 6 to 12 months. So tonight we'll kind of go through that pretty briefly, but I guess this strategy will be put to council at the April meeting for public exhibition. So what we'll do is sort of paint a bit of a background from an engagement point of view, engagement process, and then a bit of a...
Is everyone else having the same trouble with Todd? Yes. Oh, I'm just wondering whether it was me. Todd,
I'm freezing up, am I?
Yeah, we seem to be losing you.
You must be on NBN.
Do you want to turn off your video, Todd?
Yeah, try that.
We can just listen to the dulcet tones instead.
Can you see?
We can see it. Yeah, maybe what we need to do is, I don't know, Gemma, if you've got the presentation, or is Todd the only one with the presentation, if Gemma shares it so that we're not trying.
I can share it. I can even present it if Todd's having challenges.
Okay, Todd, do you want to stop sharing and we'll get Gemma to share it so that you're only...
Yeah, we'll do. Sorry, everyone. That's a little bit weird. Don't know what's going on there.
Okay, and now I just need to connect to the team and go share. Oh, hey, that's the wrong slide, isn't it? Sorry.
Oh, what is going on?
That one there. There we go. Is that right?
Yep, that's spot on. All right, Todd, so you can keep talking and Gemma can walk us through when you tell her to change the screen.
Right, my whole computer's freezing, so I've just messaged my daughters to tell them both to get off the internet so I can do this. This is what happens when you don't have your computer on for a week.
Yep.
It starts to freak out. All right, where are we? All right, beautiful. So, so as noted, our current engagement strategy was adopted back in June 2021. When we undertook that process, it effectively became, I guess, the foundation and the tools and the method for how we would engage with our community. And I guess the big thing that came out of that was we established a specific engagement section in council reports to really bring the community engagement process to the forefront of everything that we do. And so as you'll note in the reports, it says that we have a level of engagement and the key things we do or don't do depending on the topic. Not everything we sort of undertake, we do engagement on, and you know that also is a resourcing and requirement, I guess, thing as well. So at the time, it outlined those engagement techniques. However, it's lacked things like a demographic depth. So we don't have any kind of real key outline of who our audience is, who we engage with, and why. And this is a requirement now under the new IPNR guidelines to ensure that those demographics are included and clearly outlined in the council strategy. Then also a notice of motion was put to the April 24 council meeting, which called for a stronger emphasis on youth and the engagement process with young people. So this then really, I guess, piggybacked the changes to the IPR guidelines and then supported that move to really ensure we reviewed and updated the document to reflect that. So that's kind of what we've done in this process. We've also really looked at how we ensure that there's genuine inclusion and representation. So when we're undertaking an engagement activity, we're really thinking about who our audience is and how we're best going to reach them. So following the resolution that was made at the November council meeting, our communication engagement crew, Gemma and Brock, have undertaken a range of activities and a whole lot of kind of work to look at our strategy against other councils, listening to a lot of survey work. Gemma, you can jump slides, to sort of get to a point of creating a draft document. So one of the key things that we've done in updating the document is bring council's community participation plan into the engagement strategy. So I'm not too sure if everyone here is aware, but councils must have what's called a community participation plan under the Environmental Assessment and Planning Act on how councils will engage on planning matters. So we've had a standalone document, which is quite lengthy, that kind of stipulates how we will do that. And what we've done is sort of refined that, made it really simple to read and understand, and brought it into our engagement strategy so it all sits in one place, because effectively it's a very similar process or a version of engagement that we undertake. We've also looked at what's called the IAP2 framework and strengthened our approach to that. So that is how we engage with our community. And it works through, I guess, a series of levels to inform, consult, collaborate, and so forth. And so depending on, I guess, the level of project we're undertaking, then we look at where in that spectrum we fall and how we will then undertake engagement activities with the community. So if it's an informed process, for instance, we may notify people through a letterbox drop. However, if it's a consult process, then we will look to run a survey and get feedback. If it's a collaboration, we may then go out and do a workshop process and do round tables and sit together. So under each one of those, I guess, different levels in the spectrum, we then kind of look at what the different activities could be that we will formulate for each project. So going back to demographics, we did a range of engagement processes to look at who our priority audiences were, understanding what barriers to participation those groups had, and being able to define some key character profiles to really determine who our key target audience is. Excuse me. One of the other things we've looked to strengthen in the plan is to establish roles and responsibilities. And so this is looking at the role of the mayor, the councillors, and the staff, and what their kind of responsibilities and roles are in engaging with our community. And then crossing back to our legislative requirements and compliance with the IPNR guidelines to ensure that we're meeting those needs. Okay, Jem, next slide, please. So what we did to, I guess, undertake some engagement to get some further feedback from the community was develop a survey, and following the notice of motion around targeted youth programs, we actually did a specific youth-focused program as well, and ran a bunch of exercises to understand, I guess, what did and didn't work with our young people in our community. So the team put together, I guess, these two different approaches, the orange one being our broad target survey process, and then the one on the right being the one that was developed specifically for our young people. And this was all developed in participation with the Youth Hub. What we also looked at along the way is not just this survey, but we looked at the Youth Speak report, our community scorecard results, I believe we also looked a little bit at our master plan engagement processes to understand what other current engagement activities we've undertaken and what feedback we've received that, I guess, talks to how we engage or what the barriers might be to people engaging. So this slide here kind of just depicts what it takes to kind of get a message out, really. So in the middle there, you can see the Have Your Say website page, and then from that, it kind of funnels out into all these different myriads of activities or posters or web pages and so forth to really consider how we reach our audience. And here you'll see that we've got the supported channels, so things like our media, post office down at Mileston, our high schools, the local Aboriginal land councils and other First Nations groups, and how we kind of utilise those groups to then get a message out to our broader audience. And then we've got the influential areas that council has, which are our own controlled channels, like our social media and website channels, our libraries, the youth hub, how we get surveys out and so forth. And so, as you can see here, there's quite a broad, I guess, group of things to consider. There's a whole range of formats that information needs to be prepared in. So posters, social media posts, surveys, emails to target audiences. And so all these things are being formulated in the background. And I guess this paints a bit of a picture around what it takes to undertake an engagement exercise with our community. Okay, Jem, next slide, thank you. So this is a bit of a snapshot on what we saw come out of the targeted survey process. So in the orange is the survey that went to the broader audience, and then in the green is the one that went to the youth group. But you'll see that we had a total of 381, I think, down the bottom, Jem. It's got your name over it, sorry. Participation triggers. And so that included our audio interview survey with the young people, our youth survey, and our general survey. But here you'll see that there are a few different things that we looked at approaching. So around barriers to engagement, you know, we saw there were trust issues with council, the geographical challenges, timing issues around engagement. Solutions was something that was really important for us to look at. You know, okay, we understand what the challenges are, but what can we do better or differently to kind of think about how we structure engagement into the future? And a lot of that was around the follow-up, being in person, consistency across projects. And Councillor Shepherd, as you spoke to before about continuing to update people, you know, that coming back to things and closing the loop, you know, we sort of see as something as a real important, I guess, process in how we engage. Well, yes, we go out and we run an activity. What we don't do so well is come back after the fact and then go back and go, look, this is how your involvement shaped this project. So that's what we're looking to kind of strengthen in the engagement strategy moving forward. And then some stats there on the right side of the page for young people, you know, looking at what was effective. So using our youth hub, you know, engaging with our schools, social media, posters and notice boards, making sure that things were, I guess, targeted for young people was great as well. But I think, I don't have the stat on me, but it was above 60% of people that engaged with us during this process, the young people had never engaged with council before. So that was, you know, really interesting to see as well. In the process that Gemma and Brock went out to the schools and ran some activities with young people that were completely not related to our engagement strategy, but were an engagement activity to see how well the response triggered. And what we learned was give out free stuff helps get young people to participate. Next slide. Thanks, Jem. And again, thank you. So this is a bit of an overview of where we're headed, and this is an actual page that comes out of our draft strategy. So the new strategy will look quite different to our old one. But I thought it was, you know, really great to sort of get some of the call outs from our scorecard and your voice survey built into the document. And Gemma's done that really well in the way she's sort of shaped all of this. But I guess you'll be able to see here that, you know, we're getting some good feedback, but it's important also to put in some of the, honest feedback as well. Like 21% of residents feel that council listens and responds to community views, and just 20% believe decisions are clearly explained. So it's important for us to not just celebrate the great things, but to recognise, some of the concerns that we see in our reports. And all right, okay, how do we change that view in our community? I mean, how do we use that information to better shape what we're going to do to engage into the future? Thank you, Jem. Next slide. So again, some really good insights here, around what we were thinking about in how to shape our key demographics, and looking at the barriers to meaningful engagement with our community. So what we are looking to do following the finalisation of this strategy is to run internal workshops with our group leaders across the business to get them to think more about collaborative processes, not just with our community, but even internally, to strengthen how we work internally to better deliver projects to our community, and to be thinking about our key demographics as are listed on the side there, when thinking about how we engage and what we need to consider when we want to talk about roads. A lot of what we do uses very technical jargon and acronyms and so forth. So how, when we're thinking about going out to the community, do we simplify the language in the technical reports to get straight to the point, to get the message across quickly and concisely, because we recognise that our community, like us, are all receiving information left, right and centre from all sorts of different sources and avenues. And it's, these days with social media and the flick and scroll kind of culture, that you have very limited time to capture somebody's attention to get a message across. Thank you, Jem. So this is something new that we haven't done in the past, and I think this is a kind of great kind of tool to have. What we've done is sort of created some personas or profiles across our community, and by no means does this capture everybody in the seaboard and everybody on the plateau, but it's just to kind of create a bit of a picture around what we heard come out of the survey process and how people like to be engaged. We've tried to kind of get some different age demographics and so forth in here as well, to kind of really just paint a bit of a picture on what the different characters across our shire sort of are and how they like to receive information and go about their day. So again, just something new that we haven't seen in our strategy in the past. Some other councils have used some similar profiling to kind of get the message out and kind of paint a bit of a picture about our community and who lives in it.
I was at a workshop recently with a number of general managers where a technology firm had actually developed profiles such as those that just saw on the previous slide, where they had then generated a lot of information within artificial intelligence, where you could then ask information of that person on what do you think about this? And it was quite interesting to see the information that came back from that. Now, I'm not necessarily saying we'll do that with those profiles that have been developed, but it is interesting to see how that sort of technology is actually moving into those profile developments to enable organisations to ask specific questions of those profiles and see how they may be able to respond. So it'll be a bit of a watch this space again into the future to see how that works across government spheres into the future.
Yeah. So thank you, Mark. And I guess this next part here is kind of important in the sense that we really want to focus on what solutions are, but also we go out to the community and we ask a whole lot of questions on how we can do things better. But it's really important, I guess, for us as an organisation to shape our community engagement strategy to really clearly articulate that engagement is a two-way street. And we can continue to shout outwards towards our community, but it's something that we need people to shout back. We need to be able to have people access information and want to find information. What we are seeing in today's world is that everyone is receiving information to their device tailored to who they are how they want to receive it. You know, our Facebooks, our Googles, all of these huge organizations have the ability to I guess, drill down into who you are and what you like and give you the information you need. And that is creating a world where we want everything tailored to suit us specifically. But as a very small council organisation, we just don't have the technical abilities or the magnitude of a workforce to be able to do something like that. So it is important for us to be open and honest with our community and say, look, we will work with you. We will put the information out. We will run sessions. They're not always going to be perfect or in the perfect time for you. But if you really think it's important, we ask you to also go that extra mile and come to one of these events and have your say and participate. And we will continue to look at how they worked and look at other ways that we can we can deliver them. And I guess good examples of that are when we went through the special rate variation process and there was a call out on social media to run an additional session during the day in Bellingen Shire, and we did, and 4 people turned up. And so we had our elected members, our senior staff, and everyone there for the day, and there was more council staff than community members on site for the whole session. And so this is part of the challenge, that we will continue to run these sessions and we might not always succeed in getting the participation we need, but we also want to be open with our community. And, you know, I mean, we're all community members as well, and say, look, if you really think it's important, we encourage you to come with us and get involved. And so we've looked at what a lot of the survey process has said, understood where things haven't worked in the past, and have considered how we can provide solutions on those through this strategy and how we kind of enhance our engagement programs into the future. And so there's just a few more on the next slide as well. And so these are all things that are stipulated and stepped out within the existing strategy. And so we'll be able to see these in more detail at the April council meeting. And I'd be happy to share the draft plan with councillors prior to the business paper being published. We're just tweaking some final spelling and running things like that. And so we can share that sooner. It's, you know, it's not lengthy, but I recognise the April meeting, you will be receiving a hefty business paper. Thank you, Jem. Next slide. So this is another great slide that Jem's pulled together with a whole diagram here on what are the different things that we can do. So you'll see here we've got the inform, consult, involve and collaborate. These are the spheres of the IAP2 spectrum, and something that we have as an organisation followed and a lot of councils across the state follow for their engagement practices. And have done that in our existing plan. And so in this one, you'll see that we kind of step out a little bit more than under our informed process. You know, we might see things like project updates, road closures, our business as usual capital works, and public exhibition of development applications. And then we will use things like the website, Facebook, media outlets, you know, email, and it just gives people a bit of an idea about where they can consider finding out about these types of projects, depending on the scale or level of them, really. So again, we go into this in a bit more detail in the plan, and people will be able to kind of follow a bit of a breakdown on the table of how best to keep an eye out or be informed by these types of projects. Thank you, Jem. Next slide. So councillors, the next steps for this plan is the draft strategy will go to the April council meeting to be endorsed for public exhibition. We will put that out and seek feedback from our community again. If anything comes through that needs change, we will amend and update that and put through an additional report to step that out. And recognising that we also have an Indigenous engagement policy underway and in draft. And so once that evolves and develops, should there be any need to then make further adjustment to this engagement strategy to, I guess, ensure that those two documents align, then we will look to go through that process as well. So, Jem, I'm not sure if you want to say anything further that I may have missed. It's a pretty quick flyover of our engagement strategy, but I recognise the councillors have been through a lot tonight already.
Yeah, look, like I think, yeah, I hope it's a really clear document in terms of when is the best time to engage. So there's a lot of detail in there about our public exhibition and our legislative requirements, as that's the stepped out process that's the easiest to define. Obviously, after that, we get into lots of different projects in lots of different ways, and they all have a level of engagement in them. So it's really hard to commit to what type of engagement each project's going to have, because they range from the road network to community engagement projects and all the like. So we're just it is basically trying to just help people understand quite a complicated process, quite a complicated framework, and put it in the terms of what council services are and how we deliver them.
I think the important thing there too is that we then sort of review our processes that we've got right across the board to ensure that the right level of engagement is occurring in accordance with our engagement strategy. And so that's what it is important for you councillors to, once Todd has sent out the document, have a bit of a look at it. And if you've got questions when we do come to the council meeting there later this month, please don't hesitate to raise them and have a discussion about it, because it is an important document on how we do engage with the community. So, but I think it's a really great step forward, and I'm really happy with what Gemma's been able to achieve. Councillor Andrew.
Yeah, I look forward to reading the detail from the analysis or the review. What would be, the most important one or two new initiatives in how we'll engage with our community?
I would say that it's actually the identification of our priority audiences. This was not in our last strategy, and I think that really considering who they are and understanding that they are often difficult to reach. I did a fair bit of youth engagement in this strategy review, and they are definitely a priority audience, but it's also about understanding when and how to engage them on which projects, because it is, we're not ever going to be able to engage everyone on every project for council. So it's about getting smart and efficient without the way we engage, understanding who our stakeholders are on any given project, and managing that. And I think also internally working together to kind of share those resources of contacts or understanding of each project. I think that internal kind of workshop stuff that's coming next from this strategy will be really helpful for us to identify where the holes are and how we can start patching them. Is probably, and I think also listing we also have an additional slide in there about our stakeholders. And the thing about engagement is that community engagement isn't just ratepayers and people that live in the Shire. It is our many other stakeholders, which could be government bodies, it could be priority groups, it could be 355 committees. There's a real range of people that we have to engage with in any project, and the level of engagement changes based on how much influence they have over the decisions that are being made for that particular project. So it is about understanding that when we talk about community engagement, we're not just talking about the people that live in the Shire. It is also where the funding's come from, how we're collaborating with different projects and different community groups to with a shared outcome. So I think that that's really important.
And a clarifying question too, this will just help me reflect when I read the details. So on the profiling idea, so Gemma, I'd be and Todd interested in just a little bit more clarification, because where my mind jumped on that is that there's a risk of stereotyping in our 13,000 population, or take out the really young kids, into 5 labels, which I don't imagine is the intent. So tell us just a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so the reason I think we created them as creative profiles is because unfortunately any type of data is trying to find the common grounds between different things where you can create a understanding of how they link. I think that the creative profiles are there to help us understand that people like to be engaged differently. There are people that are harder to reach from a remote community perspective, which might have issues with internet connectivity, or they might not have access to the townships to hear that information. They might only listen to the radio. So it's about how we're considering that actually everyone has their own unique kind of persona. So by picking some key threads of those age groups that we could find, we created individual characters so that we didn't personify a particular area or place. We just were attributing it to, this is Sally, this is Beck. And so that just helps us, you know, show, and it's also a useful tool for internal staff to understand some of the challenges that maybe remote or people in the seaboard or might have as a kind of overarching understanding of how best to reach them. So it's about how they like to receive their information is basically what that slide is hoping to highlight.
Thank you.
Any other key questions, councillors, of Todd or Gemma?
No, I think we're pretty good.
If not, all right. So Todd will send that out to all councillors. And I thank you for your participation in tonight's workshops. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.